All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. I'm Adam Bell. This afternoon, I'm going to provide an overview of business disaster recovery and home disaster recovery. This overview should help you get started on your own disaster recovery plan. All right. Who am I? Obviously, I'm Adam Bell with Sublime Computer Services. I'm the founder of Sublime Computer Services. I started the company in 2008. I'm the author of the book, Have You Tried Turning It Off and On Again? I provide IT support for clients. We support clients throughout Middle Tennessee and throughout the United States. We currently have over 450 computers and servers under management that we support. All right, so what are we going to cover? We're going to cover why do I need a disaster recovery plan? What are the elements of a disaster recovery plan? And how much does a disaster recovery plan cost? And how do I get started? Okay, so this is why do I need, going into the details of why do I need a disaster recovery plan? One, your business, you want to prevent data loss. You want to save your files and folders. You want to not lose your documents and spreadsheets and the things that you've worked on throughout the years. You don't want to lose those. You don't want viruses and cybersecurity attacks and phishing to delete those files and remove all of the important data that you need to run your company. And primarily, you want to prevent system downtime because system downtime means employees aren't working, products or services are not happening. And in a small business, that can be up to $8,000 per hour, depending on your size. This is kind of based around a 20-person shop. So $8,000 per hour all day long, that's $64,000 for the entire day or for an entire week. You don't want that. Actually, that's not right, but bad math. And if you're an enterprise, $600,000 per hour, that's also a terrible loss of time. And another reason that you need a disaster recovery plan is many regulations now require that you have a disaster recovery plan in order to play. HIPAA is one of those, NASD, even the FDA, if you're doing research and things like that, you have to have a disaster recovery plan to have those things. And the American Bar Association requires lawyers. A lot of our lawyers who are doing closings, house closings and real estate, that stuff, they are required to have a disaster recovery plan in place in order to do business. Physical disasters, if there's a flood, if there's a tornado, if there's whatever, you need to have a plan to get the business back up and running. And if you want to sell a company, one of the things that is typically asked for is a disaster recovery plan. They want that as part of how they determine the value of a company. Okay, so in order to get started in a disaster recovery plan, you want to decide, what do you want to protect? And I call this a data protection exercise. Outline the type of data that you have. If you're an accounting firm, maybe the most important type of files that you have are spreadsheets and QuickBooks files and Quicken files, or files that you're keeping for your clients. Or if you're a engineering shop, you've got AutoCAD files. Or if you're a typical office, you have Word documents and spreadsheets. And you want to know what type of data you have and how you would go about protecting it, keeping it. How important is that data to your company to survive? If you lost all your spreadsheets, what would that mean? Would that be a great inconvenience or would that be a detriment? What would be the financial impact if that data were lost? Going back to our $8,000 an hour loss, what would be the financial impact of losing all access to all of those files for a day? And how confident are you that those files can be restored quickly and to full functionality? Has your IT department tested those file recovery? Have they, do they perform a restore and see if the data is good? And how quickly can that happen? Does it take 3 hours or does it take a couple minutes? And then what would be the hit to your reputation if all of a sudden you had to go back to your clients and say, well, I don't have any of your invoices, I don't have any of your files, I don't have, what would that do to your your reputation as a business? Okay, so now let's do the elements of a disaster recovery plan. So you want to think about all of the scenarios where you'd want to recover from a disaster. Don't just think about IT, think about all of the aspects of your business that makes it run. If you're a small business owner, then you may have to make hard decisions about reopening your business, because a large disaster may be so detrimental to your company. I mean, like I said, you've got to make the hard decision, but you've got to get all aspects of your business, not just IT. Well, I'm in IT and I think it's very important. That's not the only thing that it takes to make your company run. What does your hour of downtime cost? The loss of sales, the recovery cost, the employee salaries, and the loss of reputation. So assemble, outside of your IT, assemble your equipment inventory and vendor inventory. You want your account numbers. So like if you've got to call Comcast and get your service stopped and started at a new location, you want to have your account number in order to do that. You need phone numbers, you need payments and due dates and when those things are, your electricity. A lot of those things can be recovered with your address, but if you have a nice list of that stuff ahead of time, it'll make it a lot easier for you to recover. And then start choosing the right technologies and right vendors for a good plan. And you want to have tested and layered backups. So you don't want to have just one single place where your backups are. Okay, continuing on with the plan. You need to have a written plan that is stored offsite and updated every 6 months. So that means you've got this thing assembled, you've got all the people that are involved, you've got all the things that are involved to do, but things change, vendors change, business models change, offices get opened up. So you want to make sure to have a regular update of the plan. Determine the employees' roles in the plan. So if your bookkeeper is in charge of the vendor information, you want to make sure that they are updating the files. And then you also want to be sure that that person is listed in the plan as the person who's going to make the phone calls to all the vendors. So determine who's going to do what they need to do, and they have that responsibility. Define an incident versus an action response procedure, meaning an incident is a full-blown, we've got a disaster in place, and then what is going to be the action to that? So sometimes you may have to think of, okay, what happens if we have a cybersecurity attack? We're going to do X, Y, Z. What happens if we have electricity outage? Go through the scenarios of what is the incident and what is the response. And then here's the hard part that a lot of people forget to put in there is to plan to fail back. So they went through the process and they failed over and they're in the disaster recovery portion of it. Now, how do they get everything back? They're on a temporary server. Oh my goodness, how do I get back? So that needs to be part of it. And test the process. That's also the thing that almost never gets done, and not never, but it rarely gets done on a regular basis. It might get tested once and everybody determined that it was good, and then it gets forgotten about for a couple of years. Talk to your insurance agent. They're going to have a lot of insight as to what you can do and what you can, if you have a disaster, what kind of compensation are you going to get? What are you insured for? And talk to your banker. You know, if you have to have a line of credit for keeping the business moving, you need to have a conversation with your banker of what that looks like, what that might cost. Maybe you need to have a money set aside. I would recommend that rather than a line of credit. And then really you want to have a company that is disaster proof, meaning you want to have a business continuity plan rather than a disaster recovery plan. So instead of thinking about the company in the way that how can we recover from a disaster, while that is very important, the primary goal is to have business continuity, put things in place to where if there are failures, then here are the recovery process and things in place. Technologies like cloud technologies really help with business continuity. So instead of having a disaster plan, you have a continuity plan. So if your server's in the cloud and your office has no power, well, you have a plan in place to send people home to work on their computers at home and all the processes that go there. Okay, so how much does it cost to have to build a disaster recovery plan? There are companies out there that this is what they do. They are BDR consultant, business disaster recovery consultant, and they will come into your office. They'll ask you a million questions, get all your information, pull it together, and that may run you between $7,000 and $10,000. It may be worth it when you consider all the things that they're going to do, and they've done it before, and they're going to do. They're going to know what questions to ask. You could also do it yourself. I would say it's around 40 to 80 hours of labor of somebody pouring through reports, pouring through documentation, pulling it together. Now that person doesn't necessarily have to do all the work. They can go to the appropriate people and get them to gather the information and pull it together. But it's a bunch of work. Okay, so how do you get started? So once again, think about all the scenarios where disaster recovery makes sense, and what you would, what would you do if you lost some files? How would you recover? If you lost a server, how would you recover? If you lost some network gear, if you lost power, you lost internet, how would you recover? Find a preferred disaster recovery and business continuity vendor, or plan to do it yourself. While IT is generally the largest element of the disaster, it's not the only element. There are lots of pieces. Get an impact and risk assessment. That is a plan where the BDR consultant would come in, and they will look at your business, and then they will say, okay, they will start asking the question, what's the impact of this? What's the impact of that? And then if this happens, then your business is going to do this as a result. That's a very good exercise. And once again, if you're going to sell a company, this is going to be really important to that, and they want to know that. It'll also help you determine the cost of downtime. Oh, and that's it. And okay, so Sublime, we can help. We perform for our clients. We perform a comprehensive on-site and off-site server backups. We test them monthly. We provide a disaster recovery repository. So that's a place where you can store all of your files that are related to the disaster in an electronic copy. Also recommend a paper hard copy. We can provide an IT business continuity and disaster recovery plan, and we can provide non-IT business continuity disaster recovery plan templates. So we've done this in the past for our other clients, and we can provide the documentation if you want to perform the other pieces that are outside of IT. Okay, so now we're going to move to the home disaster recovery portion. Okay, so similar to the business side of things, you want to do the data protection exercise. You want to outline the type of data that you have. At your home, you've really got a lot of different things that you need to consider because it is your personal, files and pictures and spreadsheets and multimedia like DVDs and maybe old VHS stuff and music and financial data, your Quicken data, all these data things that you've got that are part of your life. You need to think about what they are and how important they are to you. What would it be like for you if you lost your Quicken data from 2014? Probably not a big deal. But if it's March and you lost your Quicken data for the year prior and you haven't done your taxes yet, it's going to be really important to you. So what would be the financial impact if that data were lost? Most of the time, your data at your home loss is going to be an inconvenience or it's going to be priceless, meaning you've got black and white pictures of relatives that are long gone and the only copy was ever paper. So those are priceless things. So you want to make sure that you plan on not losing those things and how you could keep them going. So once again, how confident are you that your data could be restored quickly into full functionality if you needed it? Okay, so the elements of a home disaster recovery plan. So think about all the scenarios and when a recovery makes sense, like a water leak, fire, flood, or break-in. Assemble your inventory of vendors, accounts, and phone numbers. Just like a business, you've got your utility bills, you've got your insurance agents, you've got, if you end up moving to a new house, you've got to notify your drivers, about your driver's license renewals and your vehicle renewals, that kind of thing. So you need that inventory. So utilities, internet, insurance agent, bank, and you want to choose the right technology as part of your backup plan for home. So you want to have PC image backups, and I'll explain the difference between that. A PC image backup backs up the entire computer, not just the files. So if your computer got a virus today, you could restore your computer in its entirety as it sat yesterday, just like it was before it got the virus. Windows offers a free backup solution for that. I don't like it as well as Acronis and Mac's Time Machine, but it will do the job and it will allow you to recover from yesterday, a full backup. But like I said, the Mac Time Machine is a very good backup system, and Acronis is another full system backup. Those will be stored locally. Acronis does offer a cloud version, but the full local image of your entire PC is a big backup, and it often can't be sent to the cloud in a very quick manner. So because those files are so big, you might want to take a copy to the bank quarterly. So your backup drive, it just depends on how important your data is to you. If you take it off site, if your house burned down, you'd have a copy of your computer and all your data as of last quarter. Not too bad. So you can also do a combination of that and doing file backups only. So file backups are, like I said, just files. So it backs up all the files on your computer, your spreadsheets, your documents, your pictures, your files. If you got a virus on your computer, you're going to end up wiping it and reloading it and reinstalling it from scratch, all of your programs, but then you can restore all of your files. Vendors like that, there are a number of vendors. Acronis and Carbonite are two that I have used and had really good luck with them. And so a lot of people use online file services like Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud Drive. Well, the good thing about those services is that they are in the cloud, and if you lost your computer, they would also be in the cloud. They are not a 100% reliable backup solution because they do have versioning. And as long as you're paying for versioning, paying for a larger volume of files and everything, that will work for you. But it's not exactly the same as a backup service, but it is very reliable, and it is kind of like a business continuity plan, meaning if your files are in the cloud and they're always in the cloud and you don't care about the computer, if it dies, there's the time that you lose in reassembling the computer, but all those files are still there when you reconnect that Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox. Okay, so continuing on with the disaster recovery plan for your home, get a safety deposit box. There are a number of things that you can put in that safety deposit box, and they're not very expensive. If you have a safety deposit box in your bank, it may cost you $70 a year for that, and you can put a good bit of documents in there. You can put hard drives. You could store your written plan and all of your vendor information and all those things in the safety deposit box. And you also want to test the process. You want to make sure that you are able to restore files. Store your backups in the safety deposit box as often as you can stand it, as much as you want to go there. Another thing is, so all of your original vital records should be stored in the safety deposit box. Birth certificates, Social Security, all of your, a copy of your passport. If you don't travel very often, putting your passport at the bank isn't a bad idea. And then also for your insurance purposes, having a video of your home, like your whatever your TVs and electronics and guitars and things like that. If you so when it comes time to work with the insurance company, you have proof that you actually own these things. So one, talk to your insurance agent. Ask them if they offer cybersecurity insurance. Just about everybody's offering that now. Every insurance agent that I've talked to, they're on the bandwagon there and wanting to make some money on cybersecurity insurance. So that is always an offering. And then ask them about every scenario that you might think of that could happen at your home. Because a lot of people don't know about, they may live in a floodplain, and so they're not covered by flood insurance, but they've thought all along that they do have flood insurance, or there's some reason why a flood is not covered when XYZ happens. So you just need to ask your insurance agent all the scenarios where they pay out and where they don't pay out, so they're going to find a loophole if there is a loophole, which there always is. And then find out what restoration company that they certify. So if they may offer 2 or 3 different companies, you want to know which one that you want to use. And talk to your banker. Same thing. You want there to be no surprises if you need a safety deposit box, if you need money for whatever reason, and then disaster proof your home IT, kind of like the business. You want to do things in the cloud where it makes sense and it's secure. And then another thing is to have a family fire and tornado drill. You need to have safety thing. Really, you need to have something like that in place for your business as well. And then just kind of, I added in here the basics of a disaster recovery supplies. So if you had a disaster or a flood or a tornado or something, and you had to abandon your house or whatever, I kind of put some disaster recovery supplies. So $180 can get you an emergency kit that will cover a family of 4, and that would include food and water, light and communication, like illuminating light, shelter and warmth, so your tent, your blanket, your things like that, tools to survive, things you need to do, hygiene and sanitation, first aid, and items for stress relief and activity, like card games and things to entertain the kids and yourself as well. So I want to thank you for taking the time to join us in this overview of disaster recovery. We do offer a free disaster recovery report from our website, and you can see that at www.sublimecomp.com, DR Guide. And like I said, that's a free report that you can download. You can also contact us if you have any questions that you would like some clarity or some details. You can reach us at our website, www.sublimecomp.com, contact-us, or if you just want to contact me directly, you can do so at adam@sublimecomp.com. And I thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.